What's going on, y'all? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, and I hope y'all are having a great day. And I hope you're making the most of the time, the most of the moments that you currently have available, because at the end of the day, the present moment is all that we have, and it's incumbent upon us to make the most of it. One of the things that I'd like to point out that I've come to realize, especially over the last couple of weeks, is the difference between being a boss and being a leader. The difference between being a boss and being a leader. So, when you think about leadership, we consider a lot of people in positions of influence to be leaders, right? But I've come to realize, based off of communication, based off of how things kind of roll out, especially in time of crisis, that we have a whole lot more bosses than we do leaders. We have a whole lot more bosses than we do leaders. And what do you mean? What do I mean by that? You know, um, Back in the day, it used to be stated, or you've probably heard it stated, that, any fool with a thing can be a daddy, but it takes a real man to be a father, right? Any fool with a thing can be a daddy, but it takes a real man to be a father. Well, I think about that kind of as an analogy or a metaphor to kind of explain the difference between bosses and leaders. Because anybody with a title or leverage can be a boss. Anybody. If you got the money, if your name is on the letterhead, if you're sitting in the particular office or position, you're in essence a boss because you have the leverage, you have the title, you have the position. And so all of your subordinates have no choice but to listen. You're signing the checks, they got to listen. You're a boss, right? So any fool or anybody with a title, with leverage, or the one that controls all the resources, in essence, can be a boss. That's a boss. Like anybody, it takes no skill set to be a boss. But as it pertains to leadership, you have to have empathy. You have to have understanding. But you also have to be willing to lead by example. You have to have empathy. You have to have understanding. But you have to be willing to lead by example. So when we see a lot of the directives that come out, when we see a lot of the communications that come out, when we see a lot of the timelines and the things that are supposed to kind of help the collective to become better, to come together, to deal with, this unforeseen crisis that, we've never dealt with before, we haven't dealt with in, over a century, we're in need of leaders in a lot of different respects, not just political, but also in business, also in our communities, but then also within our families. We need leaders. We need more leaders and a lot less bosses. Because again, any fool with a title, leverage, or resources can be a boss. That's nothing special. But it takes someone special to really be a leader. And I think in times of crisis is when you really get to a point in which the cream rises to the top and you start to understand what the value is of true leaders. You really start to understand that. I've mentioned this numerous times in some of my talks or speeches or, podcast episodes, but Nelson Mandela said, fools multiply when wise men are silent. Fools multiply when wise men are silent. That was from Nelson Mandela. And to me, that really is indicative of the need for leadership. Because when leaders speak up, they help the fools to keep from multiplying. But when it's just bosses talking, the fools run amok. Because the only time the bosses really have any impact is when their leverage is there, when their title is being led with, when they're using their resources to, in essence, influence the behavior of others. That's being a boss. Now, what I'll flip it a little bit, and I want you to think about this as it pertains to your own life. You can be a boss in your own life to you, but as it pertains to your interaction with others, you need to become a leader. Like I got a homeboy, man, really good brother, man. He's a serious entrepreneur, just making a lot of impact around the world. But his name is Andre Hatchett, and one of the things that Andre says, and we've had this interaction on some of the platforms that I've been on with the brother. But he says at times, as men, we got to boss the F up. Like real talk, we got to boss the F up. But He's saying that as it pertains to us and how we operate in our own lives. It's not as it pertains to other people. As it pertains to other folks, you need to be a better leader. So that means you got to have empathy, understanding, and lead by example. So you have to be willing to take action. But as it pertains to yourself, yeah, at times you got to boss the F up, meaning you got to just pull yourself up and make stuff happen. But that's as it pertains to you. If you're interacting with someone else, you need to become a leader. And I just see the lack of leadership in a lot of the circles that we're in. But I'm also seeing some folks who are stepping up and really showing their chops as it pertains to leadership. And I think once we get through this, once we get on the backside of this, this Corona crisis or the COVID-19 crisis, I think we really need to reevaluate who we give the microphone to, who we give those titles to, who we allow to have leverage and influence. Because right now we have too many bosses and not enough leaders. And I'm calling all the leaders out there to stand up because I want you to realize that what Nelson Mandela said is true. And it's not just men, it's women too. So he's talking about men, in the general sense, but women fall into this category as well because we need leaders across the board. But Nelson Mandela said, fools multiply when wise men are silent. So I would say fools multiply when wise men and wise women are silent. So if you're wise, you have the capacity to be a leader. Please step up and lead. If you have empathy, if you have understanding, and you're willing to lead by example, please step up because we need you, right? And if that's you, it doesn't mean that you have to go and lead the world and do this or do that. It might start with you just leading your own family, leading in your neighborhood, leading in your community, leading in your organization. Right now, because of social distancing, that might mean that you're not going to be able to physically lead, as far as having physical interaction with someone. But you can lead by utilizing technology, lead by utilizing the things at your disposal, also practicing, the social distancing and the, stay at home orders or directives that are kind of put out there. But find a way to lead because people need that. And we need to find more leaders to drown out the bosses that have the microphones right now. And I think ultimately, if we can really start leveraging the leadership capacity of the true leaders that we have available, and there's a lot of us out there, I think we'll be better for it all in the long run because this type of situation helps to expose folks to realize that, some of y'all are just bosses. And as it pertains to just yourself and your own life, fine, be a boss. But if you're charged with being in control or being at the helm of an organization, an entity, a country, scenarios that impact or involve other people, if you're just a boss, you might need to take a back seat because we need some leaders to step up. All right. Well, hey, let me know what you think about this, man. Make sure to share this video with your friends, your family, but let's get the dialogue started, man. Who are the leaders that need to be given a bigger microphone? And who are some of the bosses that need to be asked to sit down? Think about that. All right. This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You. Y'all be blessed, well, and wise. Stay healthy. And look forward to rapping with y'all soon. Peace.